everybody. It is your good friend, Dr. David Proden from down here in the North Star Recording Studio, and just wanted to do a touch base show tonight. So, have Peggy the Comfort Pig on deck for Monday. So, that is going to be a good one where we examine what is an ADA animal versus a comfort animal. What does that mean for schools? Because this is coming up a lot right now, especially in the classes that I teach. It's Ron Wayne and Cameron Sanchez. So welcome, welcome. And I think my image is mirrored again in the back. I don't know why. And now it should be correct. There's something with this software. So let's give it a second here. So yeah. Hey, Billy. So, Mrs. Wayne. So, if you can read the titles of my books from left to right, then we are okay on the back. I don't get it. So, I honestly, I'll tell you, since I upgraded to UCAM 10, I've had nothing but problems with that reversing image stuff going on. Like I'll have it set and then I'll start a new show and it'll reset. It's like, yikes. So let's kick this off by putting me up on a billboard right here out of Albuquerque, New Mexico. So hello everybody. I'll start the show up here, and now I'm going to go on the jumbotron right here at probably Fiserv Forum in Milwaukee, and let me do this. I'm going to be up on the side of this building. Hey everybody, look at that red bus down there. And then over here, whoa, look at this skyscraper here. We're in Chicago. Pretty crazy stuff. But look at this. It's a bar in Germany. Hey everybody, what's on TV? It's Doc. Oh my goodness. All right. So, which is the only redeeming quality of UCAM 10 is that you can do that. It's like the only redeeming quality of that software. So, and yeah, anyway, couple things. One is, I watch some YouTube channels like every day, and I wanted to share with you 5 channels that I watch because to me, these are channels which are informative, kind of, face validity, and some of them, have like a panel of experts from the field experts to really give you an idea of what's going on. Right, you're not going to get through the media and so I'm going to go through these 5, which I think, and I have them down below in the description, would be worthwhile for you to check out the content and consider subscribing. But these are kind of my five go-tos. But hey, welcome. It's Bolo. It's Pokes a Bob. Dun, dun, dun. Hey, buddy. Mrs. Wayne. Yeah, Ron. Doc's in control of all the TVs all over the world. So yeah, there is some really interesting stuff you can do with that software. But I haven't, gotten into all of that. And in like the context I work, right? If I'm doing like a professional meeting, probably not going to put myself up on a jumbotron, right? So, but it is kind of cool. So actually, I can snap like thumbnails. I could do for the show, but I'd run out of them. But I would probably have at least like 15 I could do that way. So hope everybody's well. So that you're checking in here and you're well. It's cooling down here. Our neighbors had the 2 big oak trees removed yesterday, and one was between our 2 homes. There's about 20 feet, and it was like right in the middle, and like a 75-year-old tree. And then another was up, and that one had storm damage from in June. And I'm glad these trees are gone, because if we would have had big winds or any type of storm, like that, if these would have fallen, they're going to hit either our house or our neighbor's house. Granted, the trees were on their property, but just by like 2-3 feet. These are huge trees. And I did not want to. Actually, I paid last year to have both of those trimmed back. I talked to my neighbor and said, "Can I hire the tree guy? Because limbs are kind of out over on our property, right?" And one of those falls off. You know, suddenly you've got damage to your siding, to your roof, and gutters. Well, if you have $1,000 deductible, I think that's mine for like house stuff. You're easily paying your $1,000 deductible, and then are you going to be able to source siding that matches the siding you have, or roof, or whatever, so shingles. So I just feel really good that that's out, and they made that decision. So big storm comes through, not much to not as much, right, to worry about. um so yeah, it's cooling down. It's like in the 60s here, which is typical. I have a load of 4 cords of firewood coming in tomorrow at 8 o'clock in the morning. And then that's the first of the deliveries. And then, as always, like, I will carry it down the stairs in canvas sacks, and then start to stack it in the room that's next to me. And that will take a while because, and I take time now just to kind of do that all in a day, but I'll spread it out over a couple days because I'm old. Um, but yeah, no Keebler elves were harmed in the felling of those trees. No, the guy who does it, he and his sons have been doing this for as long as I've been here. Like, they've been the tree guys, and they have it down. I was watching them. I did a couple little short clips I posted on YouTube, but they rope everything up, right? So as it falls, it just falls level with the tree, and then they slowly lower it, so you don't have things swinging and hitting houses. And so yeah, it's really something to see. Now it's a little sad because we have a lot of squirrels in our yard and kind of in our neighborhood, and they would always be running up and down and zinging through those trees. And especially when my daughters were younger, it was kind of a fun thing. We still have like a big oak tree out back, and we have our maple, which is getting a little bigger in front. But yeah, that's a little sad. Um, that But there's still plenty of trees, and not as sad though if a tree falls on our house. So yes. So let me get into the 5 channels. The first one is Dan. I allegedly. So let me just bring his channel up, and I'll share screen here. So yeah, let's do that. I'm trying to make it full screen here, so give me just a second. All right, there we go. And it's got some commercial going, of course. So we're not going to play this commercial. Yikes, like a long one. Video will play after ads. Jeez, I got another one. All right, they're really soaking it to me here on YouTube. So, all right, so here we go. So this is, let me switch it over. Hey, it's Heath. Hey, buddy. Use ad block, Doc. All right. On YouTube. All right. It's good to know, because yeah, these are getting to be irritating. I'm going to share screen, and I'm going to bring up, there's Dan from I Allegedly, and so it is I allegedly. Right. Um, so yeah, well, anyway, here it is. Sorry, didn't mean to put that. I allegedly. Why does it not? EDLY. Yes, there we go. Take this other one out. I'm not going to block user. Yeah, don't do that. Block myself. So this is Dan from I Allegedly, and there's the name and I suppose, right, I could put the site, which I should do here. But so this is Dan, right? And then he always does these shows in California where he's kind of walking up and down shorelines. So anyway, it's like it's it has great sunny scenery, and Dan is a very well thought out speaker. So he's always doing contemporary issues. Like every day, he does a show, and he'll be like, here's what's happening, here's what's being reported in the car economy, right? Like Geico's dropping, California and whatever. Or here's what's happening in Germany right now. And um, but I like Dan's content. At first, I was a little bit like, yeah, this guy's building up a channel and just trying to make money off the grift, right? But he is researched. And there's depth to what he does. I like his channel, and I've watched it now for several months. But this is, so this is what I would call almost like a member check, right? Like Dan is telling you, here's what's happening to the bank, right? Go over to whatever bank, and there's a sign on the door, and it's like, sorry, not enough staff. We had to close early today, and so he'll kind of show that stuff. And but I like this channel, Dan. I allegedly his background, he worked in like marketing in the medical services field and putting on conferences and kind of that area. But yeah, just we'll get a strike here, right? Well, but yeah, there it is. There's this logo, Dan allegedly. So that's number one. I don't know if you're familiar with his channel. I don't know these people, right? So there's no kickback here for the doc, and they're probably not promoting the doc's channel. But I, I think right now, right, because what is being released on the news is so far disconnected from what is authentically happening in our world, right? And a good measure of this, if you want to put yourself through it, is to watch the national news at 6 o'clock at night, and just listen for what's the first topic they go over, what's the second topic, what's the third. And it's like today again, another, you know, horrific day for the stock market, crashing below 30,000, and the annual, year low and all of that stuff. And but really, the other stories that go with that, right, of how is this impacting in inflation, people's ability to live. And what if you're like someone had emailed me and said, I did a little thing about like if your accounts go down, here's what they go down 50%, you have to come up 100% to recover. Um, but they're like, no one's talking about people who are retired and have to do these required minimum distributions, which is part of like 401ks, right? So somebody who could be like 70, 73 years old, and they're required by law to take so much out, but now they're having to take this money out while it's down, and so they're getting less money out. That money's not there to grow for them. I mean, if there's any good side of that, at least they're getting money out that's not going down further. But it's a it's a tough situation because you can't defer that legally. um, so these required minimum distributions in like right now, for some people are having a very negative impact, and then it will continue to impact them maybe forever. Um, so, Andrew, how do I get the girls? You watch Aaron Clary's channel or Chad Elkins' channel. So, um, so yeah. So there's Dan, I allegedly, and let me get out of that. So that's our first one, and these aren't. I wouldn't say they are doom and gloom, or like people who are trying to scare you or anything like that. Um, so, so Dan, I think, is very based. Um, and then, uh, oh God, now I've got another ad here. So next one we're going to do. So the first one is Dan. The next one is, geez, Okay, the next one that we're going to do is Jeremiah Babe. So some of you are going to know, you know, now I got kicked back to another commercial. This is it's for arthritis medication, which I'm good. We're good there. So this is Jeremiah Babe. So I just put down the name Jeremiah Babe. Right, he's got his. So here's just a little bit as we go. So Jeremiah Babe he kind of splits his shows. He also lives in California. Now, I take him with more of a grain of salt than I do Dan. I think Dan is more broadly dialed in. Jeremiah, for the last many months has said, moving to Alabama and I'm going to look at places, but like he's still in California, right? So it's like, well, okay, bud, but at some point, or like if someone has a channel and says, I'm going to be an Alaskan prepper, and then 3 years from now they're still, you know, living in Reno, Nevada, you're like, yeah, you said you're starting the show and you're going to share your journey of becoming an Alaskan prepper, and you're still like, hanging out in Reno, and it doesn't seem like you're making the commitment to really move. So there's some things on here, like when you watch over a number of episodes, you're like, okay, but his thing is finances, right? So Dan is kind of this globally what's happening and these indicators in places, and in this country they're telling you got to shut your lights off at whatever time. And Jeremiah though knows real estate, so he goes out, and sometimes there's a friend of his goes with him, and they go to like these housing developments, and they will check on the progress or if things are slowing down and the cost of things. They'll walk through and they'll go through an area that could have a strip mall, and how many are occupied, how many aren't, and here's how it's been like the last year. So they'll go into a store in a certain time of day and say there's like two people here, and usually there's it's 30, 40 people. So he does that kind of sampling, and then he's very much in tune with like just the currency markets. Now again, there's going to be he's a good presenter, and there's going to be a little bit of always kind of doom and gloom coming out from Jeremiah Babe. But I think no, as again we have a sample here of 5 channels. Um, he's again pretty dialed in because he's going out and checking what is happening in his environment. So Jeremiah Babe, this guy is always about to move. Yeah, Heath, you're right. So that's the thing, right? It's kind of like a Scotty Kilmer video. Scotty the car guy, when he puts the headings like this is the end, and then there's some sad images, and then he's like, this is the end of Ford's whatever. He starts out, and then he just gets into like, I got a question from Heath in Oklahoma. Is it true that you can spray WD-40 into your fuel injectors? So I didn't say that, right? It's a question for Scotty. But so yeah, that kind of erodes the credibility, right? You perpetually can't base a channel off of saying California is horrible, I'm going to move out of here, and then it's like, and here I am, in California doing the show. I'm like, okay, buddy, but right at some point, like if you don't move, people are going to figure this out. But I think when you get to be kind of this big as a channel, like he has a massive number of followers, that you get enough new people, right, where they don't know what you've been saying before. They're being sucked in now. So that's kind of like the Scotty Kilmer thing, right? Like, the first time I saw like one of his videos, like, this is probably the end for me or whatever. And but then it was, it's never that way for Scotty, but it's just, so anyway, this guy's always on the move, or always planning to move. So, um, Jeremiah Babe, probably my least favorite, honestly, of all of them. And there's some days and he'll hit you pretty hard with the precious metals bit, which, but that kind of gets to be his thing at times. So yeah, you got to be ready for that. Um, so let me get him out of here, and let me get to my next channel and fight through a slew of commercials here. So this has become, I like the chat on this one, to go into the chat. This guy, so this is going to be Southern Prepper 1. Southern Prepper One. His name is Dave. He was on like A&E or something on a survival show. He's was in the military, and oh my God, they're not blocking his. Oh, it says ads in 2 seconds. Um, so he was in the military, and now he lives, I don't know, it's South Carolina or something like that. But he then, jeez, I'm getting some grilled cheese burrito ads, but they look much better in the ad than I know they would look like in person. So let me bring this up. So this is Southern Pepper One, and down below, post you're like, well, Andrew's saying turd flinging monkey's the same way. He lives in California, but talk trash about it every day. So yeah, if there's a channel you're like, here's a channel I think people should check out, right? I think there's some value in this. By the way, we're up to 1.22 thousand subscribers, and we're getting closer to 1.23. And one of the YouTube shorts I dropped yesterday had like 2,000 views, which is great for the channel views. I mean, it's 30 seconds long, but um, so you're not wrong about Scotty, Sally. That's bacon, right? So yeah, and I've got. I'm not trying to encroach on Bacon Show. I wanted to get this out there, and again get another show, and I've got to get to bed before real late because I got to be working on firewood tomorrow. So this is Southern Prepper One, and actually he'll say like contact me at southernprepper1 at yahoo.com, and he tries to call everybody back, but he does this thing called boots on the ground, which is really just face validity. And he'll do it himself. He'll be like, I was at the, you know, dollar store today, and here's, things were all over the aisles or whatever, or this is the price of chicken feed in my area. I can't get part for my, you know, mower until whatever. So he does that. And he also, people email him stuff and then he shares that. So that's good and bad, right? Because you don't really know if what you're getting is authentic information. I think he's getting better at trying to verify things. Like he'll be like, this person outside of Tulsa, the power was out for 45 minutes. So always have like your reserves, and someone emailed them in their, in Texas, and their electric is going up 30%, or someone has something going on, and they got a part for their car, and it's broke like the moment they tried to install it. So or someone placed an order for, he's big into like kind of naturalist survival. He's not going to, you're not going to get a lot of stuff where he's going to be outside like building special fences and stuff, although he did like build this like fire suppression system out of like gravity fed tubs and stuff once. But his thing now is like every day he does his boots on the ground, and then I think you go in the chat, and it's really really neat to see. I don't know if it's neat, but it's interesting to see what people post. And I think most of these people are genuine. Like they'll say like, this is what's happening by me, or I had this experience. Like I went to the bank today and I tried to take out $400, and the bank said, oh, you have to come back later because we don't have that much money now. So like people will put that type of stuff. So um, hey, it's Swamp Dog, and it's Heath, and it's Spambot. Hey guys, it's good friend Bacon. So yeah, so this is and this is pretty much where he does his shows. It's a cabin outside of his house. And one time there was a rat walking up here, although it was a different angle. It was like over on this side, but yeah. So he is, he does, most of his shows are between like kind of 10 and 20 minutes. It's very rare for him to go over 20 minutes. So that's another thing. And it's weird because he'll say, I only have 20 minutes that YouTube gives me. And I think that's true. Like most of his shows will cut off like at 19 minutes, 50 seconds. And I'm like, who is that? Under what condition, there's somebody who has like, what, 200,000 subscribers and has done all these shows, has YouTube only given you 20 minutes? So I don't know if he doesn't know his setting. I mean, by my fifth podcast, I had unlimited time, right? As most of us did. So there's this kind of quirk, but that is his thing, is to, if you listen for 20 minutes, he's going to rattle off, 50 emails or phone calls, that he took with people of like, here's what's happening here, and here's what this is. And yeah. So not finances, it's more of, can't get these supplies in, or medical appointment was postponed, and now they're telling us it can't happen until March. So Dan from I allegedly is that you know walking along, taking these stories from all over the world and like telling them to you. It's a good memory, just good presenter, and then and he'll also say kind of what he's seeing out there. It's really a lot of sun, right? So here I'm in Wisconsin, and in winter it's overcast, and Dan's out next to a beach. So there is something uplifting about that. Jeremiah Babe is really based, in the economy, but then he's also going to tell you his moves, but he doesn't. And Southern Prepper is giving you like from this network of people, like what is just happening in their lives. It's kind of different every day. Like I didn't have to wait, you know, eggs now are whatever price, and 2 weeks ago they were this price, and somebody sends him a photocopy of the receipt. So he's good, and that he's not over mixing, right? He does, it's one take. So, it's very genuine of what you're getting here, and not a lot of drama. He's a pretty positive guy. I'd say he's a positive guy. So that's your number 3, and then let's go to my number 4 for you guys. So I know I should be linking all of these out, and I'll get to that at some point. But I'm gonna just get. All right. So here's the next one, and this is Counsel on Future Conflict. So our friend Joe Dolio is a regular on the show. I was a guest once, and actually for me, it was really hard for me to keep up with these guys because I'm not in that world intelligence level that they function at such a high capacity. So their focus mostly is Ukraine, right? What is happening from day one, if you go back to their shows, and they will show you maps, and they'll show you like, here's where the conflicts are happening now, and here's areas which have, Russia kind of has taken over, right? And here's going to be the implications for like this port, like if this falls, or so. I mean, and these are all ex-military. They don't live. All of them don't live in the U.S. Some of them are in the Eastern Hemisphere, so they're giving you accounts from there. These shows will be a couple hours long. They are really the real the eye opener of looking. They'll bring up maps and explain what is happening, and you'll be like, "Whoa!" Like none of this is talked about on the media, right? It's um, so this is where if you're really into that, right, if you're really into the military strategy side of things and understanding what might happen next, and then like fallout, right, here's where the grain typically is harvested, and if it can't be harvested, if it's harvested, can't get it to a port, look for like this stuff to happen, and like if this area falls, then it's likely then this would be the next stronghold. And so i I think, again, if you're into really trying to follow what's happening in Ukraine, I guess, and all the billions of dollars that are flowing that way, this is for you. And um, also, if things start to escalate on the front of, Russia, with war, and other countries, kind of starting to build alliances, or become more overt with where their alliances are, they're going to give you that. I mean, they already give it to you now. It's not only in the moment. They're saying, here's what I think the next few steps will be. Counsel and Future Conflicts. So um and there's their intro. So let's see them. So yeah, Russia mobilization and a Ukraine update. So this is their show. So 2 hours and 25 minutes, and you can show the people. This is kind of their intro here yet, but so now these guys have also worked together for quite a while. So there they are. So here's our friend Joe Dolio, Colonel Mike Bennett, watcher on the web, Scott, Virginia Gentleman, Blaine Pardo. So this is really a high technical brain trust right here. So consider it future conflict, right? I'll be honest with you. I watch and kind of take parts of it. Again, it moves it moves pretty fast, and their level of technical expertise is unmatched. But you've really got to commit probably to the show, right? To get everything. Um, if so, the big difference again, this is contemporary in the moment military strategy, and I think it's the best that's out there. Um, so good YouTube, like future is redacted. So Ting Ting is sharing that. Well, good deal. So yeah, Bacon is helping us with the links out there, and I've got them down in the description of the five shows. So this is number 4. So let me get them out of there, and then let me go over to my last one here, which is one that's kind of new for me. And here it is. This is Neil McCoy-Ward, I believe is from Great Britain. 351,000 subscribers, Neil McCoy. So let's get this. So here he is. So this is one where he's out like walking, and he's another one of these. Here's contemporary, right? Like what I'm seeing with countries, with economies, and also like policy. So he's going to talk about like here's what ESG policy, the impact is having like right now, like what Belgium has a nuclear power plant that they will not bring back online, or I think it's set to stop operating October 1st, and they won't extend the life of it, even though they're energy deficient and heading into winter. They're forcing this close, right? So he talks about these policy impacts, and then how like what each of us probably experience or see, like how that's been influenced by these policies, and where things could be going with some of these policies. And then his presentations are edited. um, he's very detailed, and this 26 minutes is about right for what you're going to get from him. But again, Neil McCoy-Ward, and now you have somebody who isn't from the US, right? Because we've kind of had US centered input on what is going on. But he's a realist. Also was in the military, so has that perspective and background. And so this is obviously what he just put this up today, right? Showing, I guess, US dollar strength, and spending some time. I'll see economy, I'll see policy. So yeah, yeah, I think you can um, give them a try. I mean, again, not won't be for everyone, and these channels for me, honestly, it kind of depends upon what I'm looking for, or maybe the mood I'm in, or what's happening in the world. Where I'll kind of flip around those channels. So those are my um, so let me see here. All right. Yeah. So let's go through those channels again. So the first one is Dan from I Allegedly. So Dan is he'll be moving around too. So he never sits when he presents to you. So he's walking, along the beach. So that's one I think that has a good energy to it in a contemporary. And it's one of those things too, like when you think, are, are things kind of, am I the only one who's seeing kind of the craziness? And you'll be like, no, someone else, he sees it, and he curates these articles, and he'll say like, an article in the whatever, the San Antonio Press, according to them, the real estate this, and um, So again, kind of a well-cited, energetic Jeremiah Babe, which will be economy. And he does go out. He knows the realtor side. I think he is a realtor, although like that, he doesn't say that on the show, but I think he is a realtor. And he'll go into these areas where new housing is coming up, and how the prices are changing, and the pressure it has on existing like electricity and water, um, and again, economy, you're going to get the precious metals from him. And but I mean, his shtick will do that. And then he's also perpetually moving out of California. Southern Prepper One, Dave, real earthy guy, right? He's out there in his shed. He tries to contact everybody who gets a hold of him, and he's got like 300,000 subscribers. He was on a survivalist show like on A&E like 10 or 15 years ago, and um, but he tries this well, he does his boots on the ground, tries to get input from people of saying like, and here I see this, or here's what is happening with gas prices, or something broke on our stove and they told us it would be 3 months before somebody could come out, and then he also gives prepping tips along the way, although it's not really a channel you go to learn like how to make your own air conditioner, right, or something like that. um, Man, it is, yeah. So not like that. So good show. Future Conflict. That is focusing on the Ukraine, and it will go from Ukraine to China to Taiwan. But those are guys who are experts in that area of global conflict and what has happened, what likely is going to happen in the next few days. Not so much like how it will influence like economies, like markets and stuff. It's just um, they're not speculating on that. They're the ones that will bring up an actual map and say like, here are where the forces are fighting, right? And then if there's video that they can authenticate from certain parts, and um, or they'll look at equipment and say this is what this is, and it's like older equipment or it's newer, so this indicates like some strategy to commit resources or whatever. Um, and then Neil McCoy-Ward, who again I'm kind of newer to, who I believe is from Britain. Um, Somewhere uh, in the European Union, right? And he is one that's he's the person who's looking at here's the real time effect of policy, and then he's also saying here's what he perceives as world markets and economies, and about 25 minutes. So if we go through the three, Dan allegedly 20 to 30 minutes a daily show, right? Um, we go to Jeremiah Babe. Jeremiah Babe, also 20 to 30 minutes, usually daily show. Southern Prepper, like 10 to 20 minutes, because he only feels he has 20 minutes on YouTube. It's one of the craziest things that you know, I don't know, but he you're not going to get anything longer than 20 minutes, 10 to 20 minutes. Future Conflict is going to be your 2 to 3 hours every couple of days. Neil McCoy-Ward is, usually daily, about 25 minutes. So just, kind of sampling out on those. Opera Leamington falling in. ESG, Pure Evil, says Heath. Heath is saying this right here. So, yeah, I think, what is it? Belgium right now, with the nuclear power. So let me see if that's correct. Um, yeah, let's do. All right, so it's right. So it's right here. Let me move it. Um, so so this is Belgium shuts down nuclear reactor for first time. So this is it. It's going to shut down, I think, October. Well, gather against. So there's a protest. They already have blocked off here. They're anticipating protesters, but they're shutting this down, and it produces 1,006 megawatt hours of power. And the the reason to shut it down, right? They're saying it was planned to shut down on October 1st, and this is the lifespan of it. Now the reality is, right, they're in an energy deficit. They're coming into the whole energy crisis in Europe, and they are, you know, they could extend this, right? That's what people are saying who are opposing the shutdown. They're saying, it's been maintained. Why can't we, why can't some regulation be passed where it's inspected and it's kept open for 3 more years or something like that? Um, and that's not even being entertained, right? They're just saying, nope, we're shutting it down, and we have, we acknowledge, right, that we're energy deficit, man, kind of too bad, too bad. And it's really horrifying to see the responses, right? If you research this a little bit and you read about it, there is it is strictly based on this number of it. Once it hit this date, it was obsolete. And right, like we've done that with, well, think about like World War II battleships. We're still retrofitted, right, and overhauled and used in the 90s. Um, so yeah, I mean, it is whoa, it is trying to find that pretty crazy. So let's the cleanest and safest energy on the planet. Yeah. Um, Tim Kennedy About Violence podcast is also a great channel. He's an ex-Green Beret and UFC fighter. Good deal. I'm sure once everyone starts freezing to death, they'll start it up again. So isn't it crazy how, some of these decisions. So here's another headline for this. This is out of Brussels, right? The Brussels Times. Look at this. So, shutdown confirmed for Friday despite politicians' pleas, despite calls from members of the federal government to postpone the dismantling of the Dole 3 nuclear reactor. Both the operator and the reactor's director have confirmed that it will shut down. So it's very strange, right? This was in part an agreement to appease the Green parties in government who have been noteworthy in their long-standing opposition to nuclear power. So, wow. But, again, the real consequences of this, to take that much energy out of the system during a energy crisis is just almost unfathomable. So, yeah. So 5 channels. Monday, I have the show where I'll be talking about the comfort pig. Peggy the comfort pig. It's a case study we'll go through together. And I'm going to talk about ADA. Yeah, I teach this in my legal classes, right? ADA, animals in school. And it's interesting, right? Because people think, oh, it's a service dog. Well, most of the time, right? But legally, another animal that's ADA is a miniature horse. Yes, you look it up. And then we'll get into comfort animals, and that's not nearly as well defined, but very locally or per a state, like it can get defined very specifically. Like someone, a state or a school could be completely on board and put policy or saying we don't have to do this, we have to comply with service animal, not comfort. But not to give too much away, but I learned a lot when I built that case study a few years ago, because what was happening with my students, right, my principals, it wasn't that more service dogs were coming to school. It was more comfort snakes, sugar gliders, chickens, stuff like that were coming to school. So that was where they're like, well, how does this work? How does this work in Board of Education policy? And what if a doctor prescribes it? Which is kind of strange, but right. So we'll have that on Mondays. So Heath is saying, Ting Ting, sad thing is that what they're going for, no sane person would do what they're doing. So yeah, I look at those types of things, right? And also I'm looking at the states that are saying I have it in the class I'll be teaching, my next class, but I don't have the date available from me right now. But like all school buses have to be electric in some states by a certain date. I'm assuming like new school buses, um, but there's another part of this that people don't think about, right? Like in certain states, after a date, which is coming up very quickly in some states, if you build a school, you have to have energy charging stations that go with it, right? So staff are parking their cars. So now you don't just have a parking lot, right? You have a parking lot with maybe 60 chargers or something like that. Well, that's never been a part of school. Like you never have school with a gas station next to it, right? So what does this look like? And I'm going to present that in with my aspiring superintendents. Like, what do you do for construction now? You look at this window and say, well, if we go for a new high school now, right, or whatever middle school, we can get it and not have to pay all of this additional for this electrical vehicle infrastructure, which has to, by law, like be part of it. Part of like a building code for these structures after a certain date. So does that change your thinking as a school board and as a superintendent to, push that up? Or, what does it mean? Because if you're planning, right, for a building and, if 2 years from now, you'd be required to put in this electrical charging area and all the infrastructure to support it in the school. And now your cost for the entire building is 10% higher than what it was before. Well, that's a big thing, right? A community is only going to tolerate so much on a referendum proposal. It goes on their property taxes, and especially now, economy is horrible. And so, we're going to talk about that, right? I've got an article. And what's your first discussion you've had on this? What are your organizations saying about it? And what do you know what the timeline is, right? And you know and most of them probably won't, right? But the fact is these things have been moving up really quickly. So I'll pro on snakes. So get this, buddy, there's an entire like website devoted to advocating for snakes as comfort pets, and I found that when I was going through and doing like the case study. So and I don't know, I don't have it. I don't think I have it bookmarked or anything, but yeah, it said, they're hypoallergenic. They don't eat a lot, right? They're typically not aggressive, and they're pretty portable. And I mean, there were like all these reasons, but I was just like, interesting. And that is, if you like just did a Google search, and maybe we'll do that during the class, or not the class, the case study we work on. But you're not my students, right? But um, we'll see that how many will turn up, like, of these stories, right? And they're not necessarily novelties anymore. Like, I wouldn't say it's common, but I would say, if you've been a school administrator for 5 years, you've probably encountered a comfort snake situation, someone who's student who's brought that in, or um, it's much more common. Snake seems to be the one. Pig, small pig is somewhat common. Sugar glider, squirrel thing is fairly common. Kind of goes probably more in that, but snake is pretty much the top of the list for comfort animal. So reminds me of a buddy, Oregonian firebender. She had an emotional support turkey once. Oh my goodness. So here's the thing. I put a link on your previous videos. It was put together by a physicist based on peer-reviewed papers on upcoming disasters. I put a link on your previous. It was all right. Tell me a little more about that. So you were promoting my videos to this person and their papers, or? But thanks, Heath. But help me to understand a little bit better. My youngest daughter's boa can unlock doors. The snake, likes to go exploring. Wow. We we haven't. I saw a snake when I was out biking, went across the road, but snakes in our neighborhood have kind of like hung back in the park, about 100 feet in back of my house. We had that one year, like it was a warm day in October, like they were all in the yard, but they're not poisonous here. I mean, they're not venomous. I'd rather have snakes and rats any day. So yeah, what about birds? Yeah, not really. But I mean, it could be, right? Someone could make that argument. So when we on Monday, I'll share with you how what's happening because this request is becoming more common and that it's actually being written into policy more frequently to uh, be like a comfort animal friendly school. And I think I'll tell you how I changed my position on that over the last couple of years. But I'm like, whoa, thought you would enjoy. Oh, appreciate that, Heath. Um, yeah. So, so yes, those are the things that we'll be talking about. So let's let me go over and I want to hit a couple things. So, how is everybody doing today? So, doing good. Um, so, dun dun dun. All right. Um, let's go over here. What is it? It is stocks that have hit a new 52-week low. Yay! So apparently this is only updated once a week through Yahoo, but um, again, not financial advice, but let's just take a look here because I've never seen um, the conditions that we have right now. Right? Of course, it was what was it after the pandemic? You know, stocks took a dive, right? But that was considered a black swan event. Things kind of recovered from a black swan. It was like 9/11. But this, this now has that inflation part paired to it, which I don't remember that being coupled like it is. So this is completely new. So let's look at just some of these companies, right? Of new 52-week lows. Google. So I remember the day Google went public, and people would um, pre-order basically stock. I think it was like $500 a share or something like when it initially went public. So like it was this crazy IPO and but yeah, so Google now hitting so the 52-week low is in the last year like the lowest the stock has been. And I don't think this is updated to include today, right? So but it's Toy Town Inc. Hey, dun, 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 look at this here. Toy Town Inc. Thanks for all the watch hours. We are getting within a few hundred of being monetized, which is awesome. The show has thousands of more views, so it's really good. Visa, yeah, interesting, right? Because that's going to be a lot of um, debt that people have. So interesting there. Meta, the whole Facebook type thing. Nvidia, which was a really strong company for, I mean, it doesn't mean these aren't strong companies. This just means they hit a 52-week low. But, with all of the video card stuff, I don't know what some of this is. Toyota, Abbott, um, and Cisco. So Novartis, Nike. Yeah. That whole thing. I think if I were to look at any industry now, right, that was kind of based on apparel, especially like a brand apparel, which is where's the money, the discretionary spending coming from, right? Um, so again, I'm not giving any report on anything other than saying that these stocks had hit their 52-week lows within the last week per Yahoo Finance. UPS, I think, right? UPS, FedEx announcement last week that they perceive the economy slowing down, and they went down 21%. FedEx did. That didn't help UPS. You can just imagine, like whoever is in charge at UPS, right? They're like, wait, what did FedEx just say? Oh no, don't say that. That's bad. That's bad news. So, but these are companies, right, that all of us know AT&T, Intel. I thought Intel was low like back in April, and I was looking at that thinking, yeah, the chip shortage, right? But think that'll come around, and has not so far. Thanks for the thumbs up and for the subscriptions. I appreciate it. So, some surprise. AMD, um, and this is that whole thing, with the industry of chips and computer parts, supply chain being backlogged. These industries that they are in. Budweiser, come on, you gotta be kidding me, right? Budweiser's a 52-week low. What's up with that? Um, Now Caterpillar's is interesting because that I saw in many articles of like, here's a stock to consider for your portfolio. Like within the last month, like, that was that was being touted as a stock. Again, 52-week low doesn't mean in 2 months it's not at a different level, but at the time it was being, you know, in these articles it was being talked about. It was obviously higher than it is now. Um, Sony, ServiceNow, Infosys. So this they take like the 30 stocks, and kind of I think bigger stocks and put them in here. But this is now one thing I don't see in here, right? I don't see energy stocks. That sector seems to not be taking this big dive. Not that it's doing great, right? But um, utilities, none of these are. When I say utilities, like water, um, gas, electric, right? Like, that none of these companies are in that area. But we tend to see technology represented pretty strongly here. Here's some medical stuff. Abbott's in the medical, Toyota, Honda, HMC. Where's Honda? Let's do that HMC and just see what comes up. Honda's at 23, so holy smokes. So let's look at a 1-year chart here for Honda. And Honda pays a dividend. Does it down here? What's their dividend? 5.83%. So, like, the reason it's 5.83% is because the stock has gone down so much. So if the stock goes down, it's paying $1.40 a share. The dividend goes up, right? But that means the company has to pay this much more of their profits out to people. So that'll be, I think, an interesting dividend to watch to see if they can keep that going. But let's look at a 1 year. So Honda came out and did that crazy thing where they did bonuses for workers, but then they're like, "Oh, we gave you 5,000, and it shouldn't have been that much. So now either you give it back, or we will garnish it off your paychecks." Just a really bad move, I think, right? Like in this time of hard to get a trained workforce, just crazy. So here's like the 1 year chart. So, back here, what was it? $30, and now it's 23. So, that's almost a third of a drop there, right? So about $30. A third would bring it down to like 20. So not quite, but significantly. Let's do the math on this. 23 divided by 30. So 24% drop in 1 year. So then, then what you do, right, is you take the 5 year and you're like, okay, it's not, it was up here, but then here's obviously, it's easy to find where the pandemic was, right, on every chart. So you're like, well, it's kind of retracing to its 5 year, and then bring up the maximum. Well, back, if you would have invested here back in 84, I mean, you'd be up. But yeah, so kind of look at this, right? But this is like boom, and then you wonder like, where's it going to go? It just seems hard to think right now, if you're a car company, right? How, like, as you're transitioning from um, internal combustion to electric, what does that look like? And um, how are you selling cars during a horrible economy, right? And I don't know, just bad stuff. So that is so that's that 52-week low. Um, let's look at Google while we're at it. So let's do that. So this is today's chart for Google. Now let's do 1 year. So I think Google had a split, and this is all adjusted for split. So we go back to the end of December, 148 a share. And as of today, what, 99. So, whoa, go back to a 5 year. You can tell, like, if you got in early, right, you're still above where you were at. But, any point, here let's even go back further. If you would have been January of 2021, like, you'd still be a little bit up, but kind of past that point, you'd be down. So you look at this, like short-term outlook, midterm, long-term, like that's pretty much across the board. No dividend for that stock. So let's do an energy stock. So let's just do NRG, which is a utility. So, all right. So you'd expect utilities to hold up better during harder economic times because they're regulated and they usually pay a dividend. And there's a lot of infrastructure to owning utility, right? You can't say, oh, we're going to, start our own power plant or dam or something like that. So these usually hold up well when a market is doing, like, I don't know well, but when the market is high, and then these aren't as attractive to people because they don't ever typically gain a lot. But let's go on a 1 year chart. So yeah, not a lot of difference here. Apparently May, but what happened in May, right? I don't know where energy is, but this stock, but this could have been a heat wave or something, and there was more demand. And I mean, I don't know, but let's look at a 5 year chart. See, this is it. This is when, kind of my point. I'm making my point off of one stock, right? But energy stocks, typically the profile is like this. They're pretty level. Let's go to max. Even the max, if you were to draw a line across here, right, you're pretty level. And this pays a dividend of 3.38%. So if it's a dividend play, like $100, right, you get $3.38. Or if one share is $100 and you own one share, you'd get 3.38% or 338 or $3.38. So, but anyway, midterm, long term on utilities, and probably because demand will be going up as we hit winter here. But just things, right? Just observations on patterns with utilities. But the thing with having like a portfolio of utility stocks is you're probably not as likely to get that big run up, right? Utility stocks just don't have that profile. Again, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just showing you from charts and graphs, right? So, but yeah, this stuff where companies like that we know, Microsoft and Intel and Abbott and are, when they're making these lists of these lows, 3M, right, is like an 11-year low or something like that. That's really eye catching, right? That kind of stops your mind a little bit because, well, yeah, I know these things, right? I know these companies, like, my goodness, right here, these post-it notes that I bought, like, you know, these are actual 3M post-it notes, right? These are super sticky, and by the way, they are not. I have not found them to be super sticky. Put them on stuff, and they don't have the same stick as what was going on in the past. But um, so eight. Let's do this. Let me move this up. All Pro Lemon 10. By the way, I think I did my last bike ride of the year. So, but it was a good year. I biked more this year than some of the. I don't know. It was a good biking year. Boeing just announced 150 layoffs and accounting being outsourced to India. It's getting bad. So much for recession-proof job. I think a bad sign of things to come. Yeah, that is wow. I remember when I think it was Boeing or Lockheed Martin when they laid off a bunch of engineers. There was a story about that, like 20 or 25 years, or a documentary of, I think it was right in the Seattle area, of just the impact that had on the economy. And it was very difficult for those workers because they were actually pretty narrowly trained, like as a aeronautics engineer, right? So if you're kind of not working in aeronautics engineering, um, there weren't a lot of there wasn't a lot of side movement for those professionals. But um, so Heath is saying they work in tandem now. They shift profits from one side of the board to others managed by BlackRock. So yeah. Well, Heath, tell me where it's being moved to right now, because it's nothing I'm seeing, man. I'm not seeing where here's the hot sector right now. There were many days you could look and you could kind of see, oh, banking is up today, or and utilities are down, or utilities are up, or banking are down, or medical, and you could just see the sector rotation was very evident, right? And now it's like everything is down. And it's not just that everything is down, right? It's like everything is down, plus like it's a 52-week low, or it's a 10-year low. Um, so that is pretty freaky. So yeah. AWK is one of my favorite stocks. It's a water utility. Well, let's give it a shout out here. I'm not going to give it a shout out because I'm not endorsing it. Let's give it a look out. So we're going to bring it up here. This is for our friend Andrew. So American Water Works Company, AUK. So when you buy shares, I'm like, I need 50 shares of AUK. Okay, Andrew, your turn. I'm going to buy 50 shares of AUK. They're like, oh, American Water Company? Yes. That's the only way they'll sell to you, though. You got to do the AUK thing. And then they record it and they show it to like your shareholders. So, okay, so here's American Water Works Company. Guess what they do? But so here's a 1-day chart. So, but let's look at their year to date. So they're down year to date, but let's look at their 5-year. So wait, let's go and see, what do they do? So 1.86 on a dividend. So that's good, right? And we went through that. You get a dividend, you can reinvest and work your average down on shares. So that's good. There's a high barrier to entry in utilities, right? No one's going to just start up and say, oh, I got a water company. People need water. So here's your 5-year. So you can tell, like, this company, if you did a slope line, right, is trending up, even though right now it's down and the market's been, dropped from 36,000 to 29,000, the Dow. If you look, if, you're back in here in 20, all the way back to like March of 2020, you're still probably up today. Plus you're getting that dividend to come in. So it's interesting. But look at this, Andrew, the long-term per Yahoo right here. It has a triple moving average crossover, by the way. Look at this. Holy smokes, a triple moving average crossover. What in the world? Yeah. So, but I think there's so thanks for sharing that. And so those are the things I think are, if you're investing or you have investments or things, just to understand, like, what are some of the different sectors, or if you're working with someone with investing, like, what's the difference between utilities and medical and banks, right? Or tech, right? So, but yeah, that is, I tend to watch a lot of utilities because they're not exciting, but they don't go all crazy on you. Typically, if things go nuts in the economy, because people still need utilities, right? And especially if things are rough in the economy, there isn't any startup company who's going to be like making a plastic power pole or something like that. So let's go down to new comments. Stock averages 19% a year gains. Yeah, man, I'm not sure that's accurate, but you know, I it's one of those things when you see these, YouTube videos, or you hear brokers, right? Say the market over the last 130 years, the market has returned 8.1%. Well, all right, um, how about over like 1968 to 1982? Well, like zero, right? Maybe whatever, um, but then, it's kind of like, that's just not the way to look at things. Like, so much is different, right? The automation. So, like, will jobs be different? How are people going to have money that they'll generate that will go into like the market or investing if things become automated? And the whole introduction of cryptocurrencies and things when they just show you that, like, graph. And the other part is, like, if you didn't time it at certain things right, then your portfolio could be significantly return could be different. And if you have a brokerage house or your 401k, there's some management fee typically with that, or a fund fee, not a fund fee, which would be nice, but um, so there's always this little erosion which is happening. So um, yeah, I think um, that's always an important thing to look at, is like, how much am I paying in fees, or how much is if I'm invested in. And but anyway, some people are more willing, either they don't know about it, or some people are just more willing to take the fees because they feel they don't know as much about the market. But or just investments, right? Not doesn't have to be market, but could be a certificate of deposit. It could be, whatever, they buying a treasury note. It always amazes me, to be honest, that people money is such a big part of our lives, our existence, right? That people don't spend 1 hour a week learning about finances, right? They don't spend 30 minutes watching a video on, here's what a treasury bill is, and here's how to check the rate. And if you want to take one out, here's how to do it. Like, right. And here's why you might want to do it. And just so they have some knowledge. So when someone says treasuries, oh, okay, like there's a website, Treasury Direct, I can go to, I can check the rates. Oh, I don't have to pay state taxes on a treasury, note or bond. Okay, so that's good. Oh, but I can't redeem it early. Okay, there's things you can learn, right? But I mean, largely there isn't a financial advisor who's directing you to Treasury Direct, because they wouldn't be getting a cut on that. And so Treasury Direct is really like a self-service thing. It's kind of old school, but um, keep in mind those drops in prices aren't really drops in price. It's a drop in value of the dollar. Yeah, that's a good point, Heath. I didn't think about that. Um, right. So to look at that, dun, 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 of the considering what the value of the dollar is. So good point. Um, those companies make a lot of backroom deals, like increase rates on customers to give themselves raises. So those companies, um, it's yeah, I for it's kind of you people who try to get to catch the genie, right? Catch magic in a bottle. They're like, oh, like, lumber prices are, people think they're going to go up, like, so they'll buy, and it doesn't pan out that way, right? Or people are like, oh, like right now might be a great time, or would be a great time, like if I bought into gas and oil, because what if the US has to fill up its reserve and then they have to buy all of this, then there's going to be less supply and the price might go up. Yeah, but what if they don't, right? So then, or what if people just, it's hard to predict, right? All these variables. What if people kind of just cut their driving down, and are like, I'm not going to drive as much. So they're just saying it, to try to predict in short term is like crazy, right? Um, and one thing, like if you're a professional day trader, which I am not, but those folks, right? I think by the end of every day, pretty much the mentality, at least like from the videos I've watched and from people I know who have done or do that, is you close out all your positions before the end of the trading day, right? So um, anything happens after hours, right? That's something you price into your decision making the next morning when you enter back into the market. So that's a whole like animal of people, like a tribe there that commits to that, man. Um, and but yeah, it's um, and you look at these things too, and I think generally there could be an argument made like it's harder for stocks to climb when the kind of the day trading mentality like pulls out the Jenga blocks as they're going up, right? I'll take a okay, it went up, I bought whatever stock and it went up $1, right? So I'm going to get out of it today. It went up $1 today. Well, like other people are buying it, planning to hold it for 5 years, and you're planning to hold it for 5 hours. So um, it's just it's weird, but um, I thought so. We see, these companies hitting the 52-week lows. If there's one thing message I kind of get from this as just a person, right? Person in America. One thing I get from this is like it's a entire economy drop, right? Um, we would expect utilities to be pretty resilient, um, but it's not like, oh, it's just like tech is getting hit, or it's just like banks are getting hit, or sometimes these sectors kind of go like just it seems very broad and heavy drop, which has happened. Um, so I don't know. You look at things, and if you look at just like the Dow chart, um, there's an interesting, when you let's do this. So here's the Dow. Okay, so that's today, which is bad news. Year to date, bad 36,000 to 29. So let's go to 5 year though, right? So this is the thing, right? If you go 5 years, we'd have to go back, way back machine to October 30th, right around there of 2020, would be lower than what it's at right now. So almost 2 years. But 2 years ago, right? Like, you know, that was pretty typical. We go back, stocks, we go back to 20, let's go back to, um, where are we at here? Okay, let's go to September 27th. So basically 3 years ago. 3 years ago, stock market was down, or was at 26,820. So it's still up from 3 years ago, right? That's kind of a thing people don't think about. In the past 5 years, it's up 32%, right? Look at maximum. This is interesting because, the stock market, my goodness, here back in, let's go 10 years ago, right? Let's work our way back here to roughly 10 years ago. Okay. 10 years ago, just 10 years ago, right, was 13,090. That and that was good. Like it pretty much was like a high for a time. So, this big increase, right? Big in the last 10 years, this massive, massive incline. Because yeah, I mean, take a look here between, and granted, like this 2000, 1988, and eventually you get to 3000 and 3 years later, 91. Well, it's a 30% jump, but this is this sharp increase here. So the lowest, we're still down after the pandemic. What is it here? 23,000, so lower than we're at now. But if you retrace this, it's retraced a couple of years back, but So the question, is like, well, if it keeps going, like, is it going to, how far would it probably retrace? I don't know. Nobody knows. But if it's here, which is kind of where it was a few years ago, like, was it going to retrace all the way to here? Which would, I mean, it was 19,173 on March 20th. That was the day we were all essential or non-essential, and so it's those kind of things where it's, well, in perspective, right? Okay. There was a friend of mine, or there is a friend of mine, I guess, who contacted me and was really concerned when this drop happened, and was like very panicked, right? What do I do? What do I do? And of course, I can't, and I won't tell you what to do. But I just had to say, before I'd make any decisions, right, I would kind of look at this picture, and then also, be informed with whoever's advising you. But things do have value. So again, like, if you have a power plant, or a company, or real estate, or whatever it is, like, everything has some value to it. Yeah, so it's not like necessarily the property disappears, or, I mean, I guess the company could shut down, then the company doesn't have any value kind of at that point versus just like liquidating. Um but yeah, uh just as I look at this, I guess my initial reaction is, I'm less concerned about what's happened this week, right? Or even the fact that from August 12th, like, it's had this pretty sharp drop. I'm less concerned about that in looking at this graph. But I also, the one thing that I didn't see anywhere on this 5-year graph, right, is inflation. And actually, if we go all the way back on this max graph, like, inflation was really before, for the most part, like, the mid 80s was when it kind of ended. It was really the 70s was a crazy inflation, and it probably ended more early 80s. So, like, pretty much everything you see here was without inflation, without really any wild inflation, right? I mean, um, nobody was experiencing the price stuff and the service costs that we've experienced in the last year over the span like that. I'm saying, per my life, I lived during the span. I don't remember anything. Yeah, where there, ups and downs and whatever. But, like, the inflation thing, though, is, I mean, there wasn't as much money printed, just honestly, back then, right? There wasn't much money. When I was in school, when I went to college here back in 1990, my tuition bill, and I have a copy of this, for 18 credits of undergrad was $700. Now, I didn't stay at the dorm, or I didn't stay in the dorm. I drove back and forth. It was like 9 miles from my house, the campus. My tuition bill for 18 credits of undergrad in-state tuition was $700 in 1990. Probably right around then too, September 21, 1990. Um, so, so I guess you could say, oh, inflation though, like university costs have inflated. Well, yes, no argument there. So, university costs have probably, then they have had huge inflation, right? So you can find these sectors, but, like, flat screen TVs, electronics, appliances, and things like that. Probably not so much, but um, it's one of these days, the market will go up, and it'll be like a couple hundred point, and everybody will feel like, oh my god, and then because it's been like boom, 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 the stair step down, and so people are going to be like, yay. Um, but spam bot, I only have dividend bearing stocks. The market goes down, I buy more. So, gotcha. And dividend stocks, as we went through with the piece of cardboard, also, if you reinvest dividends, whatever the stock is at when the dividend is paid, it's usually paid 4 times a year, it'll reinvest at that level. So right now, your dividend stocks would be buying shares, which are cheaper. So you'd be getting more shares for the dividend because I haven't heard of a widespread dividend cut happening right now throughout companies. That might be up next, but I haven't been hearing of any of that. And what is Andrew? What was that for? Um, is this the graph here of back? So if you were working right around like 2000, right, and you're putting money away or saving and you invest it, like you had a heck of a run. Not that the run's necessarily over, but holy smokes, that was just, you had bumps along the way and stuff. But if you were hanging in there in a pretty broad portfolio, right, that was representing the Dow. But the thing is, like, with this, is this, you know, people say, oh, this is going to Dow 40,000, Dow 50,000, and this is, people will look back at this in 4 or 5 years and say, look how low it was back then if I would have gotten in. And but um, inflation is just getting started. This is Heath. There's a manufactured delay. Over 80% of all money ever made in history was printed in the past. Yeah, yeah. Um, and Heath, right? The other point, or the other part, is now um, student loan forgiveness. Some pundits, right, analysts say that's largely like $1 trillion of new dollars that get created because um, it's dollars that is being put onto the federal deficit, right? Because the Fed pays pays this. You know what I'm saying though, right? So suddenly, now we have $1,000 or $1 trillion more that gets added in. Yeah, 700 college. Well, yeah, I I have. Let me just take a quick look over here because I might have it saved. Um, and actually, my professors in my university, it was a 2-year college, uh, excellent reputation. I learned a lot. Um, like, it was a very, very good value. Hey man, I took a screenshot of a 20-year note when it was only 3.5%, thinking that was going to be something to really show people at some time. So um, let me see here. God, I think I thought I had it saved. Um, Give me a second here. I know I didn't throw it out. Like, I was going through kind of my old college stuff. God, I really thought I had that in this file. I scanned it. Well, I don't know. It's not looking real favorable at this point. So, all right. Well, anyway, it's true. And I do have it. I have to figure out where I've got it. Let me go, just because it's such a novelty item. Let me go back and look in one more place here. Yeah, back when I didn't label my folders very well. So that's something they didn't teach you back in the day, right? It was how to, at the start of the internet, how to label your your folders and stuff. So now they're all over the place from years ago. All right, assorted JPEGs. Hey, that nothing can go wrong there, right? Like, that'll be easy to identify what I have in there. So no, it's disappointing. I have one more here. Let's do that. View. There's a picture of me at UW Superior. Well, hopefully someday I'll find it. but I do have it. So yeah, so my tuition, that was $700. The bond market is not safe anymore, says Heath. Yeah, I that was the thinking, right? If you're a bond person, you would take a lower return, but you'd have significantly less risk. So that was your trade-off. So that's I guess that was typically how the bonds were marketed, right? You could plan long term, right? That you wouldn't have much fluctuation, but you'd be giving up the chance to have a higher return that you probably would get, not probably, that you might get in equities. You knew you weren't going to get that in the bond stuff, but the 2020s will become the 1970s. So yeah, I'm trying. I the thing with the 70s is if you saved money, like if you had some money, you could go to the bank, right, and take out a certificate of deposit for 15%, and they gave you a set of screwdrivers. Remember that? But um, so you had inflation, which was genuinely probably measured more accurately at maybe like 20% or 25, whatever. But you could get a fixed income product, which would be like 15%. Granted, house mortgage was 20%. But again, so now, you know, you got this inflation, which is maybe 20, 25%. You have a bank CD, which is now maybe just hitting 4%. Um, and there's something really unusual, I think, with that, right? Because banks in the last, was it 30 days or something like that, more money's come out of banks than have come into banks. So you think, oh, the banks would raise their rates to get more money, which would seem to make sense, right? But then why aren't they doing that? Well, is part of that because people aren't buying cars and houses and don't have money? They're not buying things, right? Or they're not buying things from the bank. They're putting things on a credit card. Who knows, right? But it seems weird that the interest rates in banks aren't 6, 7, 8% right now. That seems strange because right now, like this, where they're at now, it was there 3, 4 years ago. I mean, you could get a CD for 3.5, 4% 3, 4 years ago. Like Connexus Credit Union was one. Um, and there was nothing like it is right now, like with inflation and stuff. So I'm like, I don't know. Um, Andrew's saying the bottom of the bond market probably hit in 20 to 2021. It's been long expected. Historically, the bear bond market lasts decades. Yeah. Um, so that is true. Um, so if you bought 3 ounces of gold a year from 2020 to now, how would that compare? I don't know. I don't know. I don't follow gold really and precious metals. Uh, part of part of that reason is, you know, I I question I question the utility of that in a crisis situation, right? If you took a silver dollar, right, a silver dollar from 1890 to the bank today, what would the bank give you? Or if you put it and said, put this in my account, how much would they give you for it? Well, they give you $1. But right, if you took it to a coin deal or something like that, they would give you the value of the rarity of the coin plus the silver. So then you'd be getting, much higher for it, right? But if you're trying to use your metals, I mean, this is where I've talked to a lot of people, especially people who have been in prison, like Larry Lawton, and they'll say, no, man, I don't. I think it would be very hard to make it fungible. Like, how would you protect it on your property? How would you take it? How would you be like, oh, this is. How would someone say, oh, this is authentic? And also they'd be like, well, this doesn't do me any good. Like, I need something else for you just to pass me a piece of metal. Um, and like people will say, well, I'd go down and cashed in at the coin store. Well, that place will be shut down, right? Like that'll be looted, and the coin store has to get money. So if the bank is only going to loan out $200 a day to people or whatever, and someone brings in a bag of coins and says, your cash is out for $10,000. Well, that's done. And then who's doing security, right? Somebody leaves, walks out of that with actual cash. You're doing this exchange. Um, and not to say like if this is your thing, then that's great. It's just I don't know what I unless you own it, unless you hold it, right? Because if it's in a safety deposit box, it could be confiscated, right? Um, if it is something you own as a certificate, it could be difficult or impossible to redeem it. You could say the same thing with like securities, right? Of course you could. Um, but I don't know how. I haven't crossed the whole utility thing in that, right? Of having these discussions with people who say like the prison economy of smokes and you know wine, probably drugs, things like that. um, but we don't. I don't know. I'm just saying I don't see it because if things deteriorated, I don't know how I would be able to redeem that stuff in a safe way. Or if you're trying to hold on to stuff like that, if you're holding it in a house or an apartment or something like that, well, um, you know, you're trying to move your 800-pound crate of coins and stuff. So Bantok is saying, use case for gold is if you flee with wealth, but if the world goes too, yeah, that you're right. That would be my thought, right? If you are going to Costa Rica, Vietnam, or something that you've got that. Hey, it's Bantok, hey buddy. But right, it not if the world like right now, right? It's a worldwide depression, um, and so how does that help you out? Um, and with how the dollar is strong and these other um, countries are struggling, but I don't know. I don't know that. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know the answer, or I can't speak a good argument to that or a good argument to crypto. Those just aren't areas that are my expertise that I know much about. Um, Personally, like I've always been, yeah, probably bond, right? Fixed things, dividend stuff. Just always been where that mindset, and then to try to not onboard, you know, debt purchases. Oh, here's $100,000 EV right in my driveway. So, um, and oh, the battery has to be replaced for 29,000 or whatever. So, those are the type of things. And um, take a good look at how countries are ranked in value by the amount of gold they hold. So I would guess the more gold you'd have, right, the more value you'd have as a country. Um, so um, it's been, some of the argument, right, with the U.S. position is, well, the U.S. spends a massive amount on military, right? So the military is helping to maintain the you know, tilting the table toward the U.S., right? I don't really. So what I pulled up is India. India has is ranked number one with 130. This is per 2019. 136 tons of gold. China 132 is number two. The U.S. 34 tons. United Arab Emirates number four at 11 tons. I'm sure that's shifted since then, but there it would, indicate that India would be your number one with gold. So yeah, I don't know. So it's all really wild stuff. So does anyone have anything in the chat they want to bring up I guess, how are you feeling about the economy? I mean, does does anyone think, well, once the elections happen in November, there'll be a rebound, regardless? Like, just as we head into elections, people tend to be pessimistic, and once we get to that, um, things will start to turn around. Um, if we have a change in administration in 2024, things will turn around. What do you think? So Andrew's saying civilization peaked in 2019. Um, there is. Tell me why you said that. And black gold is where it's at. Oil, and isn't it interesting, right? That you know, oil was kind of shunned out of portfolios, right? People, just like cigarettes, like at Philip Morris, right? Even though there's a dividend and it keeps going up, like people are, but all of this push to get oil out of your portfolios and off of your books or off of your mutual fund, right? You'd have a less friendly ESG rating if you held, oil stocks, right? So, but really, right, that does seem to be, at least right now. Let's take a look at. Let's do this. Let's take a look at ExxonMobil. So this is over the last year, right? So if you owned ExxonMobil over the last year, you'd be up almost 50%. Just think about that, right? And it's up after hours today, even though the stock market was down like 500 points. So, and you have a dividend of 4%. So not only did you get this gain, and so you would have probably owned it when it was paying a dividend of probably like 6%, but because obviously as it goes up, the dividend would inversely go down. But you know, who out there, like of the financial advisors on mainstream, right, were pushing this into a portfolio? Like, it was like, if you held this in a portfolio or like in a mutual fund, you had a lower ESG score, right? And so that's where ESG was messing and continues to mess with all of this. And maybe that's why there was such an opportunity for this too, because it was so shunned and so, oh my God, I can't, we can't have oil. So oil stocks are bad, right? And suddenly, right, let's look at, you could look at that, you could look at Chevron, you could look at Marathon Oil. All these graphs would be pretty much the same. They would show you that the value, in inflation times and in an unsteady economy in world times, now this is significantly gone up. I mean, imagine if you had a portfolio that was mostly this, right? You'd be up pretty good. Um, so I think there is, I can see, right, from 2019. I'm with you on that, Andrew. I think technology, we were still before all the deep fake stuff was coming in. Um, the economy was roaring. I just think I would say things felt pretty good in 2019. And it seems like a world away, but yeah, I'm with you. You go, nothing was really out of a store. You need a part, something is there. Violent crime especially was down. Crime in general was down. So Heath, price of gas will become 2 to 3 times up in price next month. I've been hearing that. Expect $8 a gallon and stuff. And so yeah, what I get so tired of, right, when people say, or the White House post, gas has gone down for the last 60 days in a row. I'm like, but it's still 30% above, like, where it was when you took office, right? And don't forget the narrative, right? When gas was going up, the administration was saying we've got to do our part to support Ukraine. So that was a leap to make that statement of saying our gas is going up because of this. So that was a low key, right? Low key, LOKI, blaming it on Putin's price hike, right? But yeah, we get up to 2-3 times. We get up to $8-10 a gallon, right? What holy smokes! Anybody who's right, just everything, right? But then people who are commuting, you look at the contracts. So like in the school law classes I teach, what do your contracts look like for fuel, your buses? And usually, there's they sign them. You can sign them for a year, or sometimes, well, usually up to a year of saying we'll agree to pay like this much, which is usually above where you're at, but then it caps. And there's like a force majeure thing, like if gas goes to $20 a gallon and you have a contract, the company can pay you a one-time expense to get out of it, like $5,000 or whatever it is, and then they can breach the contract under those conditions. But this is not part of. I don't know how many schools. I'll check on that in my class. How many have locked in their diesel budgets for the upcoming year? Because right, if that doubles, that is going to have a significant impact because schools don't have the ability to get that revenue to replace it. They have to take it out of their existing costs. So let me make a note here. That's a really good point. Diesel contract. Sausalito, Summertime, my favorite song by Diesel, the band. We had peak, cheaper, faster, better. Now we are entering a time in history where everything is more expensive, slower, and lower quality. In addition to that, the mindset has changed. When people do things, they're not thinking, what will I gain from this, right? I'm going to start up a business right now, or a side hustle, right? I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do this, trip or whatever. But it was kind of like people were kind of in an inventive mode. We saw a ton of small businesses in the 2019-ish area, right? And what do I have to gain? And now everyone's like, what do I have to lose? So, I'm not going to take this on because maybe I'm not going to start this up because I might not be able to get product, or people won't stay working, or the government will make minimum wage $25 for everyone and I won't be able to hire employees. And also right now, I think it's, what do I have to lose, right? If you're buying a house or something and suddenly the value goes down, so your mortgage is upside down, and then your property taxes jump, right? So it's like, oh, I'm in a bad situation now, if I do this. So, Heath, I filled up tonight when Joe Dolio tweeted that the State Department is trying to arm Iranian protesters. Holy smokes. Yeah, that's where Joe Dolio and Counsel for FutureConflict have, I think, very, very valuable intel and interpretation of what's happening on the world conflict scene. Stock price is up, but production is down. No new oil's coming in. We're exporting up. Those, because a lot of the contracts were signed. I think if I'm right on that, right? These contracts were signed and they have to fulfill the contracts. I guess, right? You could have a presidential decree saying we're not going to honor these contracts because of our domestic need, but apparently that's not happening. Half the pumps have yellow bags on them at gas stations here in Arizona. Not good, Heath. We went through that stretch here in Wisconsin. I don't know when it was, April or May, but so far, I haven't seen anything like that for the last, since then. I haven't seen that, but yeah. So this, I don't think the whole gas price kind of narrative is over. People just don't talk about it. The news, it was easy, low picking fruit for the news, right? Because your local news, all they had to do is go out to the gas station and show the sign, $5 a gallon, and then interview two people and say, well, what do you think about this? And the person has a $1,500, iPhone in their hand, and they're driving a $80,000 Lexus, and they're like, I don't like this. Feed your family or fill up with gas. And it's costing you, $20 more to fill up with gas, right? But like right there, if we inventoried everything that you have, right, you've got $100,000 worth of stuff, right? But um, but I if, I think that narrative, I think that's going to come back, right? I that's one of those things as we talk about chaos. I think chaos, for the more have studied chaos, right? Chaos seems to be um, a a big circle, right? So it's an orbit, and then eventually, if it's a small orbit, it returns. But I think like now, especially if we go back to March of 2020, that we're still in this orbit phase, and we could only be like 20% into it, and it'll take years to come back, and not to where we are, because this always moves, baseline always moves, but to come back to, I guess, what we would kind of call more of a, I don't want to say normal, I don't like the word normal, more of like just a predictable torus, like that tomorrow will be like today, today will be like yesterday, but in a way that is good. It doesn't have like these variables of violence and um, inflation and shortages and stuff like that. Ellipse, yeah. There is, it's called a Rossler attraction equation. I wrote about it in Velocity of Information. And when you look at it in a crisis or chaos context, it tends to frame things out like like a um, like a Halley's comet, right? Where a comet would have kind of that elliptical big orbit, right? And just because you can't, you lose relationship to like where the comet is, which is chaos, like to where like Earth is, right? You're just kind of on the comet. So for you, like you're on the comet, like that's every day you're on the comet, but you don't realize you're getting further away from like Earth, which was kind of your typical. And um, but there's a lot, I don't know it nearly to the depth, right, of the quantum physicists who know the Rossler attraction, but how it has me looking at things, right, is on a much bigger elliptical 3D model, right, for chaos. And I don't think we're even a quarter of the way into this. And I say that because people are still in the crowd in behavior. If you look at purchases, they're surrounding themselves with comfort items, and they're not starting the new businesses and the entrepreneur stuff and stuff like that. Um, and that would probably mark like the midway when that started to happen. And then you'd start returning back to this on this elliptical. I could actually graph it out, and it would be interesting in a show to talk about this Rossler attractor applied to chaos. Um, so people who think and see things in that realm, I think, handle chaos better and can kind of know what to anticipate. But the part is, it's not as predictable as I make it sound, because you really don't know how big this elliptical area is. And the other part is, like, while you're out in the elliptical area, you could get hit with another Rossler attraction, another pandemic, which would be Black Swan. It's a Rossler. It turns this in a different direction now. So instead of like, this, it's got this other loop, and suddenly, like, it's pinballs. It hits and it moves one, um, uh, or like a pool ball effect. And then things are kind of, all bets are off once you have these multiple Rossler attractors that come in. Eventually, like, things will settle in um, to a typical state of chaos, right? Like, I guess, like, there's chaos all the time, but like typically things tend to dampen back to kind of a mean. But we could be, and I believe we are still very early on in all of this. Um, and there could be a phase of this. People forget. Remember the Colonial Pipeline hack, which happened? I wrote about it in Philosophy of Information. Fourth of the countries was out of gas, and you couldn't get delivery, and the whole system was uh, technologically locked up. You had to pay a ransom, and although that narrative really got weird, like, oh, we didn't pay a ransom, or we paid it in Bitcoin and we got it back, or I don't. I'm guessing there was probably a large amount of money paid, and nothing ever, and they just like opened up the pumps and, who knows if they had a latent code. I remember talking to a software engineer who specializes in like prov- um, safety of companies, right? Cyber safety. And he said, it wouldn't be difficult for a skilled hacker to hack a system and then give, ransom, and then the company or whatever pays the ransom, and then they open it up and they say, okay, like we you did this. So then there's this weird trust factor, right? You they have credibility because, oh, that hacker, if they hack your stuff and you pay them, they'll unfreeze it for you. But at the same time, they could plant some dormant code in there, right, that they could activate and shut it down again, right? So this whole thing, and it was today, right? Wasn't there a major city or a major government in the U.S. City that had its stuff ransomware, and they didn't want to admit it, um, and they had to. It was today. I have to. Is it? Well, the school districts get hit up with that. Actually, I want to talk about um, this ransom. I should use it as a case study. I already have a lot of case studies. I'll just post this on my Twitter so I don't forget about it. Um, Man, I don't know. It seemed like it was a big thing, but I don't have I can't find the article. Um, huh. Interest. Do you know? Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Like, I thought there was a city, like, in the last day or two, a major U.S. city that got hit with a ransomware, and they tried to keep it internal for like a day or two to resolve it, and then so they couldn't, and they had to go out. Um, Try one more. Man, I don't know. It's kind of weird. So, um, yeah, you have to step back and look at it from the outside when you're on the inside. That's the thing with the Russell equation. And actually, I thought about putting this in the velocity of information, right? I thought about putting this drawing in, and I did a drawing of time dilation where I had a child, a man, or I had this, done for me in a train, right? And then all these points, and then it would show you the perception of how things were moving, right? I described it, but um, if I would have done like this Rossler equation, like I would have put, if you're here, right, here's what it looks like. But if you're here, then you see the whole thing, right? One thing relative to another. But it would have been hard to convey that. The book is conversational, right? It's not scientific, and that would have come off, either one is like the author is trying to like show off, which, I'm getting that information. Other people are helping me put together. Or you could just basically do the same thing by saying, if you're outside of the situation, or outside of this physical context, looking in at it, you can see how the parts kind of interact with each other versus like if you're inside of it. But ironically, I didn't go buy more gas when that happened. But the moment I came home from work and saw a meatpacking plant was down from a cyber attack, I immediately went out and bought $100 of meat. Yeah. See, I think cyber attacks, I presented on PBS about this in 2019. And that's when I was kind of going through the deep fakes. And I said, one thing schools, because school safety, I said, school safety, and this is actually what the trilogy, right, of school safety would be. My final presentation, which would be what, 2013 to 2025, right? If I were to do a school safety presentation, I would never do one after that. But um, the trilogy, I think, would be the cyber safety, right? And looking at how the deep fakes have come in and how ransomware has come in these districts, um, and now how that has, and school safety with swatting, right? That's a big thing of people calling in intruder incidents in schools, but they call it in for a school 1,000 miles away, and that school gets swatted. Like that's been in the start of this year been crazy. The frequency of that, like unseen any time before. So you'd look at that. So Heath is saying I have to run this, so have a good night. Well, thanks for being here, Heath. I need to wrap this up like in 5 minutes because I do have to get up early and I have a lot of firewood coming in tomorrow. Yeah, and I have to uh, be ready for that. Have a good night, Doc. All the topics tonight are many and far too large to take on more than one at a time, and that's hard. But yeah, the links. No, you're right. And um, so Monday's show is Peggy the Comfort Pig, and I already have the blog post done for that. And I also think like that'll be there'll be some humor in that because I can share some of the stories of what people will tell. Like someone comes in with Rudy the Rooster, right? And then how schools have to approach this. And actually, there's a certain way you have to do that, and the questions you have to ask are pretty scripted. Um, but and where I think this is going, both in a good way and a bad way, I guess. Um, so that is Monday night. That is our show, Peggy the Comfort Pig, which is a case study that I use in my class. I should bring in a cyber safety case study, but yeah, um, I don't know. Um, I kind of feel like that's a little more, although really it's going to be the Board of Education and the superintendent, which are going to have to make the decision, right? All of your school data is hacked. They've proven it to you, right? They've given you, you know, PDFs of the files that they stole of staff with their social security number, student grades, disability information, IEPs, whatever. And they said, we are going to start releasing this publicly um, in 24 hours unless you pay us $2 million, right? In Andrew coin. And then, so what do you do, right? So as your board, and what does your insurance carrier do? What if it's not 2 million? What if it's like 5 million, right? And so most boards tend to do say yes. They agree to this, right? Um, and so then as a superintendent, like you're going to be a part of this decision. It's really going to come down to the Board of Education. Like you'll be the one helping to inform the board, like through the tech. It's going to be outside, it'll be police, and they'll say like, okay, if you don't pay this, they'll probably do what they're going to do, right? Or be prepared, right? If they go through, and then you'd probably be sued by the parents and by the staff, saying you had an opportunity to intervene, although like, right, trust among thieves, like who really, I guess, right? So as a board, if you pay like the $5 million, which could wipe out your entire fund balance and all of that, and maybe your insurance will say like, hey, we'll pay like half of it, but you have to pay like the rest out of fund balance. You're running under a very small time frame, and then the board usually can say we protected you from this harm, and it was then maybe they hire an outside outside tech firm, and um, they're probably not firing their IT person, because their IT person is saying, well, I did the best I could with the resources you gave us, and the state only gives us so much for like IT funding and security, and so it's probably not going to end up with anyone losing their job. But I'm going to do that. Let me put this down here. Schools, ransomware on schools, to let you know. God, I have a couple pens here which are like 10 years old, literally. I bought a whole bunch of these because they were like the greatest thing, these paperweight profiles. At least I thought they were. Like I use these all the time. And then I stopped making them. And now I realize they're not really good. Kind of suck. But that would be a good show. Spambot is like, I'm out of here. Have a good night. Okay. Appreciate you, buddy. Monday will be a good one. So got it ready to go. Yeah. So this will be a show that I'll do. And I might have a guest on, if I could get Trippy Lakes to come on to talk about the technology side, but I can also just run it from like a school administrator side, right? If you were notified, oh God, I should do this as a case study. Maybe I'll do this during my final class. I think I could, I've been doing more stuff that's kind of nimble, right? I'm having my students, don't tell them, right? But I'm having them, um, I'm giving them, I'm putting them into two groups, and I'm going to, they don't know this. It's not in the syllabus. It's a brand new assignment I put together, but it's on public policy advocacy, right? Um, what happened? How would you present for 4 minutes if it was on school funding for technology, right? Increased by the state. Let's say that you have 4 minutes. And you have your state committee there, which is legislators and things like they're not tech people, and you can get in through your lobbyist in the state, right, from your organization. You have 4 minutes. What would you tell them? So there's an actual, I do this, like I've done this in the past, and I've been called in to do these testify basically on something. So those are information testimonies, right? It's not like a court hearing or anything. It's informing a bill. You come down and say, here's who I am, and I am for or I'm opposed for this bill. And then you give a personal story. And then at the end, you try to do like a statistic and say, like 11.4% of all, or like 114 districts in Wisconsin were compromised by ransomware in the last 2 years or something like that. So you try to like leave some factual number, right? Um, but anyway, like it would be a good Monday night safety doc show coming up. If I were to do, what would that look like from the administrative side as a school board and from a superintendent? You get hit with a massive ransomware. You've got 24 hours. Who are you contacting? What is your communication out with your staff and parents and families? And who makes the decision, right? Who's going to actually make this, which will be the Board of Education will have to make that decision. So they would probably have, I don't know if they would have to meet in session. There are some things the superintendent could do. Like, let's say, there's a tornado that hits a town and the superintendent could open up the school as a shelter, right? And, they don't need the board to convene to say, we're going to do that. But something like this, you'd probably, you'd have this emergency meeting who would inform these decisions. And then, what do you do? And what are the consequences? And maybe, part of it is I've been kind of transparent. From a Board of Education standpoint, there are probably less negative consequences to pay millions of dollars than to not pay it and have the private data get out. Because I would think that would guarantee that you'd have multiple lawsuits against the school board, right? And the claim would again be that you failed to act. You could have done something, again, although it's right, this whole thing with thieves and stuff, but that would be at least the argument coming out there. And board members voted on and stuff and whatever, but you could wipe out an entire district's fund balance could be gone. And then how much does the insurance carrier pay? So a friend of mine is a school business manager, and I'm going to ask him this question. And if he doesn't know it, I'll have him ask their attorney or ask their insurance company. Now, the good thing with that is, like, he gets to place the call and he gets to say, oh, I'm asking a question, but it's not because we've just been under a ransomware attack. But he will ask that question for me as the business manager and say, is there a threshold, right, that we have on our threshold on ransomware payment? And the other part is, right, are they going to start sharing, or are they going to start trying to sell schools, like the school's insurance carrier, are they going to say, we'll insure you for a $2 million instant, right? Like we might be willing to pay that based upon the information and what we know about the attack, the ransomware attack. But after that, like it happens once, you're done, right? We won't pay it again. Or is there something of saying, if you pay us an additional X number of $1,000s a year, we'll insure you up to 5 million, right? But then who do you want to know that information, right? You don't want it in your board minutes. Well, the hackers, the ransomware guys are out there like, oh, this district made a news because they paid this rider to have $10 million of ransomware insurance. So, right, like so, um, how does that kind of stuff, that type of stuff work? I mean, it's a really authentic question, right? We're going to need a bigger boat. No kidding. That's Bolo. Bolo, by the way, like we're closing in on those watch hours, so it's exciting. It's really good. And I've been doing the shorts. So some of my some of my friends are more consistent and been more consistent on YouTube have said, if you do the shorts, um, some of them might hit and you might get a few thousand views. And that's exactly what happened. I had, maybe 1 out of 5 hit and I get 1,000 or 2,000 views, and the other ones get like 50. But so those types of things. But yeah, this is crazy stuff. I don't know. So we kind of got from where we're at to ransomware. But as we talk about like the fuel supply, right, and fuel supply being tight, what if we had a repeat of the Colonial Pipeline ransomware attack? Like now, what if that happened tomorrow? In the how fragile the system is, right? What would be the impact of that? Um, so yeah, these are really um, intense questions, and yeah. So all right, well, I am gonna hit the hay because I got to be stacking and hauling firewood tomorrow. It's just it's when it's done, and that I have more wood. There'll be more days before winter sets in that I'll be doing this, but this is the first. This is the most. When I'm done and everything is stacked, and I'm like, yay! And then it's like thinking in January when it's 0 degrees and blustery outside, house will be warm with my firewood. Um, but like right now, I'm like, oh, because it's a lot of work. And I'm getting older, so all right, let's bring up the graphics. So here's me in a sign. Here's me in a book. Here's me in a Polaroid. Here's me in a Rubik's Cube. Look at this. So here's me in the tomorrow's paper. Extra, extra, extra. Doc analyzes world situation. Here's me in outer space. Hello. Here's me apparently in a laundromat. And here's me at the side of a building. So, oh, this one is pretty cool. Like doing the media thing here. Oh, I forgot this is on here. Let me get snow. Once in a while, when I was working with um, clients in California, right, and it'd be like winter here, like at the start, I might put this on for 2 or 3 seconds. They're like, "Oh yeah, it is like snowing and cold by you, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, right. Nice and warm where you're at. You walk out at lunch and enjoy a little bit of sun and short sleeve shirt." But no, how about this one, Ron Wayne? Whoa, or this one? That was not bad. Um, I think this one is the snow that accumulates on me. Yeah, a little bit of novelty stuff. I don't know. It's kind of fun once in a while. So, all right. Well, thank you for the watch hours. That's really lame to say that. Thank you for being you. Spambot, Heath, Andrew, Bolo, Runway. Appreciate you, your support of the show. I listed 5 in the description. I just have 5 channels that I watch, and I talked about at the start of the show what I like from each one, and kind of depending upon the mood or what's going on, which one I might, prioritize. Um, you know, there might be 1 or 2 in there when you're like, yeah, I do. Dan and I allegedly, okay, yeah, that's pretty cool stuff. Or Southern Prepper 1, gotcha. But yeah, check. I would say just sample it, and maybe it's for you. Maybe maybe it's not. But those were shows. All 5 of those a year ago, I wasn't following any of them. I didn't even I probably didn't even know they existed. So those are ones that kind of stuck with me. It's kind of weird. Like, you get all into a channel. Like, there was a teacher who became a state parks explorer type guy out in Pennsylvania, and his channel, and it blew up and all this stuff. And I was watching all this stuff. He just telling all this history of here's the cemetery and this mining accident. And then I just got bored, after and he had, his content was good and his energy, but I'm like, I kind of got enough of this, I haven't, so it still comes up once in a while in the side, but I'm like, I haven't watched this guy for 10 months. And you just kind of get that way with certain stuff, where I'm like, guys, kind of hit my threshold with that. But that's why I kind of bounce around the other channel. Like, Scotty Kilmer was really, I thought, a lot of fun when I first discovered him. And then it just really gets to kind of be a repeat. Like, after you've watched him for a few months, he and his sons that kind of just repeat the same themes, right? Of this car company is probably going bankrupt, or the quality's bad over here, or whatever. So, but I guess I'm not paying anything to watch a show on the internet. So, good. All right. Well, thanks for the thumbs up. And Monday, Peggy the Comfort Pig. So I will take us out here. All right. And thanks, everybody.
As chaos erupts, torrents of conflicting yet urgent messages gush from media outlets. What is the magnitude of the incident, and what should people do to protect themselves? Dr. David Perodin clarifies human behavior during days, weeks, months, or even years of chaos. Reporter James David Dixon of the Detroit News proclaims, "The velocity of information is an education in the way people react and adapt to change. Never has it been more important to sift facts and stories for truth and meaning. The velocity of information will teach you how people have done it in history, in the modern day, and even in prison. There are teachable moments on every page." Buy The Velocity of Information, Human Thinking During Chaotic Times. Available from your favorite bookstore or online retailer. A must-read for parents, teachers, and taxpayers. Dr. David Perodin has written the most honest book about the $3 billion school safety industrial complex. Attorney James Sibley proclaims, "A brave demonstration of speaking truth to power. School of Errors rips the lid off the billion-dollar school safety industry." Using real-world examples of successful responses in desperate situations, David contrasts the expensive window dressings pitched to panic parents with the inexpensive and effective approaches proven to actually work. Read this book before you let your school waste another precious dollar on meaningless safety theater. Buy the international bestseller School of Errors, Rethinking School Safety in America, now at Barnes & Noble or Amazon.